Okay, great. Hello, everybody. We're also going to tell you a little bit about a pilot project that we did using Google Glass for retail research. So my name's Adina, Daar.
I'm Kate Flaherty.
We work at Sachs Insights, which is a qualitative research consultancy based in New York City. So we'll tell you a little bit about a project that we did, why we were really interested in what Glass has to offer us, how we used kind of the video component of Glass, and we'll show you a little bit of an example video from our research. To give you a little bit of background, we've had Glass for about a year now. I was part of the Explorer, the kind of consumer part of the Explorer program. So I sent a little tweet in that said I would use Glass for market research, and apparently they were, okay, that's interesting, and they allowed me to kind of purchase a pair. So that's kind of the background in terms of how we got it. We were initially very interested in the apps and things like that, but then ultimately, you know, I was wearing them, started recording some of my experiences, going into like CVS and staring at shampoo bottles and the like, and kind of showed that to some colleagues, and we were all very interested in how it could help us with some of our ethnographic and qualitative research as well. So we wanted to see what that would be like and run a kind of trial. So as I mentioned, Kate and I were qual researchers. We do a lot of ethnography and user experience, and one of the aspects that we're incredibly interested in is this idea of inner monologue, right? So inner monologue is basically, it's the voice you have in your head. It's, you know, it's usually your own voice. If you listen, you can hear it. Yeah. It's kind of the things that we tell ourselves as we're going about our daily life. It's the way we make decisions and kind of how that process plays out in our monologue, in our brain. It's also the experiences that we call upon and the memories that we have when we're at shelf or, you know, doing anything that help us inform. Some of it's subconscious, a lot of it's subconscious. But it's something that we strive to get at when we're doing a lot of our research, because ultimately when we get to hear that inner monologue from somebody and that first person perspective, it helps us, first of all, it's an empathy builder straight off the bat. It also builds understanding, because we call it walking in somebody else's shoes, seeing through their eyes, living a day in their life. And we feel that that's the kind of information that helps us get to insights that help our clients shape experiences that matter for people. Essentially, it's the holy grail of qualitative research. It's almost the kind of being John Malkovich view of the world, if you will. So we started thinking, okay, we have Glass now. How does this fit into some of the other methodologies and tools that we're currently using? Because we have a lot of things, and there's been a lot of discussion at this conference about, you know, the impact of research on the research experience itself. So we started thinking about this kind of space-time continuum. Literally, when we're trying to understand people's behaviors, we think about the distance. Literally, where is the space that they're in? How close are they to when and where that behavior is being done, or the thing that we're interested in learning more about is to where we get to speak to them or interact with them or ask them the questions that we have. So we have things like written journals and diaries, people tracking their behavior, and that's kind of prone to them recalling and remembering. We have face-to-face, but that has some kind of, you know, implications in terms of us being researchers and being there speaking to them. How much does that have an impact? Quantitative surveys, it depends a lot on where they are, when they're taking it, as well as how the question is asked. That's designed ahead of time. And more social media monitoring and passive information, which gets closer to the time and space, but we still feel like there's some context we want to know as well. So we saw Glass and other wearables as well as potentially a way to get us as close as possible to that holy grail moment, to be there, kind of living the moment with people, to see it through their eyes and their perspective. And I got a lot of questions sometimes about why now. We've had video tools in the past. We've had this stuff, small cameras and things. I think this picture kind of sums it up pretty nice. So on one side, we have an image in 1996. That's Steve Mann, great pioneer in heads-up displays. I wouldn't call this wearables, right? And I wouldn't dream, I don't think we'd dream of sending a participant in to a shopping experience wearing something like that. And I don't actually think anybody would agree to have done it anyways. But circa 2014, we have Google Glass, which for all the reasons that David described, it's light, it's flexible, it's kind of streamlined. It's not I don't think, as noticeable. It even has a little element of cool. So we have Teresa Moore here. She's a model at an event wearing them. So we've gone from geek to model to mainstream, essentially, and I think it will become more and more mainstream. We have 3 people at this conference wearing glass kind of in their daily life, which is more people than I usually run into in months at a time, which is cool. And we started looking around at other people who have glass because there are a lot of explorers out there who bought them in the initial phase and more coming. And we started looking on YouTube at some of the experiences that people are capturing. They're already out there. We're prone as humans to capturing our experiences and sharing those things that are important to us with other people. So you can start to see people are interested in sharing their perspective with the world around them, and you can capture, because of the hands-freeness, some of those really cool things that we as mainstream consumers wouldn't necessarily have been doing beforehand. But because glass sits, above your eye, you don't have to think about it anymore. But one thing we didn't see was retail, because nobody really goes in and just takes videos of their shopping experiences, because it's not that interesting to share. It's just interesting to researchers and people who are working in that, in retail environments in general. So we wanted to get in, do a project where we explored retail environments with some consumers in a qualitative way, almost like a self-ethnography, and then see if there is anything, when we look back on the experience that we have conducting that kind of research, that's different than what we might have gotten if we were there shopping along with them, per se. So I'm going to hand over to Kate. She's going to tell you a little bit about what we did and how we did it.
Thanks, Adina. So before we get into how we structured the interview, we want to give you kind of a sense of who we talked to in doing this case study. So when we were planning our study, we wanted to reach out to a variety of people. We wanted to get a sampling of different life stages and age groups to see if that really impacts the way they're making decisions and their shopping experiences when they're actually in stores. So you can see here, we reached out to empty nesters, college students, as well as young families, young kids and the like, to really see if that impacts any of that decision making. Additionally, because we were doing this as more of a case study and didn't have one particular client in mind, we were really just trying to see if we could use Google Glass in our research moving forward. We wanted to get a sense of the different environments. So we asked people to take us to stores where they're typically shopping, and so we were able to get a sense of how the environment played a role, whether you're in a pharmacy, a grocery store, a big box store, or even a home improvement store, to really get a sense of that true shopping behavior. And most importantly, as we were doing this, we wanted to reach out to glass novices, people who had never used glass or had experience with it, but were open to technology, because again, we wanted to see if this is something we could use moving forward, and just giving them kind of a brief introduction, were they able to use this technology on their own? And so getting into how we actually designed and conducted these interviews, we had a 3-step process. So the first step was very typical to a shop along. We sat down, we got to know them, and they became comfortable with us. We also got a sense of what they think their shopper behavior is. So we got a sense of where they're going, what kind of stores, the decision making as to why they go to one store over another, as well as kind of the tools that they're using when they're in the shopping experience. So are they making lists? Are they coupon cutters? Things along that line. Additionally, we spent a few minutes really teaching them Google Glass and showing them how to record video on their own, so that Adina and I could remove ourselves from that situation, which really brings us to how we differed. And that's the second part of the interview, where we actually went into the stores with these people. And because we wanted to model this as close to real life as possible, Adina and I removed ourselves, and oftentimes we're 3 or 4 aisles behind or in a completely separate section of the store, because we really wanted to see what kind of insights we'd be able to get if we were to send these people into stores and they could shop as they typically would, without us kind of being that researcher shadow interrupting and asking questions, because we really wanted to get to those moments that matter and see if we could uncover some new insights using a tool like this. And we ended each interview by regrouping and asking a few questions. In some cases, we watched the video back with them to really get some more of that context as they were going through the store. And one of the things that we had them do as they were exploring and shopping was to think out loud. And at first, we were kind of worried about how people would react to that. we were thinking people might think, oh my gosh, I'm being crazy. But what we actually found is a lot of people are kind of having those inner conversations with themselves and sometimes mumbling as they go through. So it was actually a really easy transition for most people to just voice that out loud, since they're already kind of having those conversations as they're going through the store. And so in the video I'll show in a moment, some of the things that Adina and I were looking for were some of the wayfinding techniques and store signage and some of how those things play a role into the shopping experience, as well as interactions with their companions that came with them or other employees and people in the stores, as well as some of those more intimate moments and how they play a role in that shopping experience.
All right, Maddie. Strawberries?
All right, I'm entering Dwayne Reed.
Okay, so where are the, what, iron-on stuff?
Yeah.
I walk in, it's just like overwhelmed, I would say, as I walk in.
I'm looking for a toothbrush. Actually, I don't know where things are organized because they just redid the layout.
Eggs. Paper towels. All the way by the food. Cookie aisle. So down here. Yeah?
You really made these?
Yes. That's serious. There's 16 of us that do everything.
Usually the cheapest toothbrushes are towards the bottom.
Oh, cheaper. Oh, eggs.
Oh, yeah, there. Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
Thank you very much.
Did you like that salad? I didn't know you ate salad.
I'm getting this particular brand because... Oh, actually, no, I'm not gonna get it because it is less money at Trader Joe's.
So, I guess we'll go with these. Plus, these were on sale.
We feel we were really able to get some of those intimate moments that we may not otherwise have seen had we been right alongside and asking questions and really interrupting the true shopping experience. We saw instances of mom kind of teaching her daughter as they were going through, as well as a couple kind of bickering over, no, I like this brand more than the other. And some of those things may not come out if we had done this in a true, typical shop-along experience. Which really leads us to some of the benefits we see using glass like this in research moving forward. And as some people mentioned today, and we've heard in some of the other presentations, the hands-free aspect of glass we felt was really most important, is one of the really important things here is, you know, people going through the store and recording it, taking pictures with their phones, it really limits the use of their hands. And in some cases we saw, particularly in the urban environments, a lot of people are shopping and not using carts or baskets and are just carrying their goods all in their hands up to the checkout. And we feel that had we asked them to do this by capturing it on their phone or other ways, we might miss some of that true shopping experience and the autonomy of this. As we mentioned, Adina and I really just gave them a few minutes overview, taught them how to turn it off and on the camera so that they were really in control of this experience. And it felt as true to life as a typical Tuesday CVS shopping trip, which is really what we were trying to go for. And ultimately, it all leads to that uninterrupted experience that really gets to the matter and the moments that, to the core and to the moments that matter when you're in the shopping world and you're trying to make those decisions at the shelf level.
But it wouldn't be kind of trying new things if there weren't some considerations or things that we ran up against. So we wanted to share some of that with you in case you want to take glass out into the field. So for one thing, I think you see from the videos, glass doesn't necessarily follow the eyes. It's not like exactly what your eye is looking at. It sits above eye level and it's, you know, attached to the glass on your head. So in some circumstances where people are like looking down, sometimes they're reading labels or reading lists and you don't capture that. So that's why the kind of voiceover that they're giving is very important as well, because it helps us get some of the context of what they're doing that we can go back and revisit some of those aspects. Another thing is the battery life. That's been a struggle for us. We had some shopping experiences actually where people want to go for over an hour And when we started, that was kind of the limit to how long we could do one shopping trip. I think one thing that we did that helped in 2 ways. We used an app, a glassware called Video Black, which first of all, it allowed us to capture video without having the screen on the whole time. The screen, go out and try glass. I mean, when you're recording a video, you kind of see what you're recording as you're wearing it. So it helped to remove that distraction that people had so they could just see right through it and forget that they were wearing glass, and also added like an extra half hour onto our time because it wasn't utilizing the screen. And then another thing, a consideration, which is also probably a benefit, lots and lots of video, right? That's really rich video data that we're getting back. I think we might kind of take it for granted. We have a in-house video department that helped us with the editing, but you really have to have a place to store all this video. And it's really important that researchers get to go back and look through and kind of pull out the pieces that are really important to the objectives. So being able to work with video was something that we kind of learned to do with glass as well. But ultimately, we felt that, you know what, it's pretty plug and play for us. We kind of had the idea, we formulated it, and then we went out and kind of tried and learned along the way. We used it for autoethnography, but we thought there's a lot of cool opportunities for the industry to start using glass. Things like virtual interviews. I know there used to be a Hangout, but potentially being able to do that interview in real time where we could then still be with people, but not necessarily there in person or having to go back retrospectively. Hard to research audiences. I mean, there are videos online of kids wearing Google Glass, which is a completely different view and perspective of the world. Live and interactive events, having people on the ground in the moment at launches, capturing what those experiences are like and reporting them back. And then really the moments that matter. There's a lot of conversation here about the kind of like intimacy moments that we don't necessarily get close to as researchers, like a lot of the interactions with the mom and her kid are some things we felt we wouldn't get as close to. But if you consider like the experience of, you know, working with a doctor, if you're having care, or like what it's like for a college student to pack their bags and go off to college, is a pretty kind of emotional experience. So we were thinking, you know what, we've come so far in 15 to 20 years. It's really exciting to consider where glass is going to go from here. We already have things like people taking home videos via glass. We have music videos. I don't know, Eminem's latest videos from a first-person perspective. It's this perspective that's been in the industry, like, in movies and film for a long time, but it's bringing that to mainstream consumers now and letting them capture that experience and share it with everybody else, which we can tap into. And then potentially, how cool would it be to bring an actual kind of like the lived experience that people have of all their senses to a client to say, this is what people are experiencing in the moment. So, thank you. Do you have any questions?
That was great. If you can bring up the previous graphic. My question is, would she go out with him? So, I'm an engineer, I do want to know. Which is why I decided to get an MBA also, because chances go up a little bit with that. But I'm still happily single if anybody's out there. But seriously, folks, this was a really, really great discussion. Thank you so much. Any questions out there? Because I do see some. But I have one comment to make, is that please don't give this idea of posting videos of people's shopping experiences on their Facebook pages, etc., because we'll have a nightmare going through all of that stuff. Yeah, but, exactly. But the serious topic we can talk about separately is storing all that data and being able to get insight from it. Thank you. So we have some.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, great. Have you had any experience or explored the ability to share the live real-time experience with your research observers?
I think when we started out, you had that ability through like Google Hangouts, but that was actually removed at some point. So I think it's an interesting area. We haven't been able to, and even when it was kind of live, it was still glitchy and depends on the internet connection being really fast. But I think, if I was standing here next year presenting something on glass at MRMW 2015, I think a lot of those issues probably will have worked themselves out by that point, we will have moved forward into some of that kind of virtual experience.
How much training or orientation do you have to spend with the respondents?
Yeah, so when we were sitting with them, it was really about a 5 to 10 minute, really based on them and their needs, but for the most part, it was giving a brief introduction, kind of here's how you turn it off and on, and as Adina mentioned, we were showing them how to use that video to black app, which allowed the screen to be off, and it was really just them getting comfortable with turning it off and on themselves, because of course we wanted to be aware of their privacy, and some people wanted to make sure that they weren't recording when they swiped their card or putting in their PIN number and things like that. So it was really pretty short, but it did depend on some people picked it up a little bit faster than others, but we found it was typically a 5 to 10 minute process.
Yeah. And then we gave them a full demo at the end of their interview because everyone was really eager to see all the other cool stuff that Glass could do besides recording video the way that they had. So, great. We're around if you guys have any questions too.